Hey everybody, in today's challenge run, I'll be rushing to complete a completely blank cookbook. The cookbook is an item that records all the Crockpot recipes that you've made in the game, and only counts a recipe as being completed if you both made and eaten the recipe yourself. Now, in order to get a blank cookbook, all we have to do is subscribe to this mod my friend made for me, called Cookbook and Plant Registry Reset, in the game. Then we close the game, go to our client save folder, and delete a file called Cookbook and Cookbook_prod. Then we just relaunch the game and voila, our cookbook is completely blank. All the mod does is it prevents your Steam from syncing your cookbook to the Steam cloud so we can have a blank cookbook. Now, there are a lot of recipes in the game, so I've made a reference sheet to help me keep track of what recipes I need to make, as well as a little cheat sheet on how to make the recipes too. Both will be available in the description down below. If you enjoy these type of videos, consider subscribing as I put a lot of effort in making these videos. It would help me out a ton. Now let's get right into it. It's a vanilla world and I'm going to be choosing Warley as he has his own section in the cookbook that needs to be filled for the extra challenge. For these early days, I'll simply be gathering resources and scouting the world to find out where stuff generally is before making a base. While I'm exploring, I'll be making some basic recipes along the way so that we don't starve, the first recipe of the run being butter muffin. It's a grass gecko world, which is nice since it means I can easily make the recipes that require leafy meat by killing the geckos. As I continue to explore, I'm able to make kebabs, turkey dinner from a roving gobbler, monster tartar, trail mix, and a froggy bundwich. I'm able to find the terrarium by the end of day 3, which is going to be important for later. With the leafy meat I had gathered, I'm able to make beefy greens as I explore this swamp, and a piece of leaf loaf as I check out this cave entrance. I had gathered some moles outside of Dragonfly's desert that let me make some guacamole, and I had the resources to make meaty stew and meatballs, so I can cross them off the list. As I was exploring some more cave entrances, I got this rather peculiar one that led straight to a toadstool spawner, which is actually pretty nice since I can use the eels for fish-based recipes later. On day 8, I finally found the Oasis Desert, which is important as I need to farm vote for their horns. I decided to settle just outside the oasis so I wouldn't have to deal with the sandstorm when summer comes around. With some semblance of a base going on, I feed myself some bacon and eggs and I can start planting all the seeds that I've been gathering so far. There are a lot of foods that require crops, so every seed counts. And yeah, until I get a one-man band, I'm going to have to talk to all of these seeds by hand just so I can maximize their seed drops. I make sure to continue exploring the world as I haven't found everything that I've needed so far for the run. After killing this beehive, I can make some leafy souffle with my rotting leafy meat, and I got the first of the 3 butters that I needed for this run. Using that butter, I made me some waffles as well as some wet goop as I had forgotten about that until now. I made some pierogies, and after heading back to base, I was able to make some sweet tea from the forget-me-lot that I had let grow. It's day 14 now, and I haven't found any gear so far, so instead I'll be using shift packs as a temporary fridge to store all the seeds I've gotten from my farming session. As the farming grind continues, I made some fistful of jam and ratatouille on the side, and as I was trading with Pink King, I made some honey ham and honey nuggets to enjoy. After finally getting some gears, I made some fish sticks to heal off the damage I had taken, as well as some taffy after finally finding the Bee Queen spawner. I also finally found the mandrake forest and snacked on some spicy chili as I gathered the mandrakes of the forest. I also found the cave entrance that led to the blue mushroom forest and thus the lunar grotto, which marks everything I needed to find in the early game to make my life easier later. After returning to base, this session of crops was ready for me to harvest. I had gotten lucky with some dragon fruit and pepper seeds, which let me make dragon pie, dragon fruit chili salad, and stuffed pepper poppers. And to wrap up my final meals as winter begins, I was able to make fish cordon bleu and 2 pieces of Grim Galette. Grim Galette swaps your sanity and health stats percentage wise, so eating 2 of them essentially negates the effect. So for our first autumn, our remaining recipes list has gone from this to this. After making some rabbit stew, I went out to hunt McTusk, netting me a tam o'shanter, and I finally got around to making a one-man band. After making some salsa, I made a crockpot, since you're unable to make monster lasagna in Warley's portable crockpot, as it'll just turn into monster tartar instead. With the crops I have been growing this winter, I was able to make some creamy potato souffle, fancy spiral tubers, potato puff souffle, and asparagus soup. With the next McTusk dropping nothing, it's time for me to go to the Lunar Grotto biome. The crockpot that spawns in the Archive biome contains a piece of collected dust, which I can use to make ambrosia. Because you can't eat this recipe, just making it counts towards its recipe completion. As I was hunting naked mole bats, one of them had actually dropped their nose only for another one to eat it, so that's gonna slow me down a bit. With the mushrooms I got from killing some mush gnomes, I was also able to make some mushy cake. And right before the full moon, I made some vegetable stinger. After making some pumpkin cookies, I went towards that toadstool spawner I had found before to catch some eels so I could make ceviche. It's the last day of winter and I'm on McTusk number 4 before I finally got his tusk to drop. With spring beginning, our cookbook list has gone from this to this. With a walking cane in hand, I planted some more seeds for our spring farming session and made some seafood gumbo with the extra eel I had caught earlier. Now it's time to do what is probably the most important part of this run: catching a butterfly. This butterfly is the sole reason why I decided this run was going to be a vanilla world with an autumn start instead of a spring start. I need 3 butter total for this run in order to make waffles, which I already made, lobster dinner, and fresh fruit crepes. I had to end a previous run where I did a spring start because I had forgotten to make a butterfly farm as autumn was rolling around, and I didn't want to get bad butter RNG before winter began since butterflies don't spawn during winter. But in this run, I don't have to worry about that since winter's already passed. Now the butterfly farm itself is pretty straightforward. You surround the butterfly you planted with a 1 wide gap of walls while leaving an exit for the butterfly to pathfind out of. In this case, the butterflies fly straight into my base. You can even make it better by having Chester at the end of the walls to make it so that the butterflies never go back to their flower, as Chester would keep scaring them, meaning they would never despawn so long as you're in the area. But I built this wrong, as I made it with a 2 wide gap, but it does get the job done. On day 38, I can finally make use of the terrarium and I spawn the Eye of Terror, though I do fall short of killing him. I make myself a piece of powder cake while waiting for the next night and instantly kill him. With the Milky Whites, I can make myself some ice cream since it counts as a dairy product, and I can make some stuffed eggplants from some crops I had left over. While farming, the Lord of the Fruit Fly spawns, which is convenient since it drops a piece of leafy meat upon death, which I can use to make the last recipe that requires leafy meat once I get around to it. After harvesting my crops, I'm able to make melon sickle, moqueca, fruit medley, asparagus gazpacho, and a leafy burger with that leafy meat from the Lord of the Fruit Flies. It's time to head back to the Lunar Grotto biome to kill some more naked mole bats, and I fortunately got one of their noses rather quickly. As I continue farming, I make myself a piece of bone bouillon and fish taco on the side before I go on a brief sailing adventure for a piece of kelp. On the way back, I track down a koalefant via the suspicious dirt piles and stored it at base as I'm going to need its trunk later for a recipe. With that piece of kelp I got, I'm finally able to make the milkmaid hat. Now it's time to head down to the ruins. After grabbing some dulcite from the Archive biome, I made some glowberry mousse, as well as some surf and turf thanks to the eels from that toadstool spawner I had found before. While exploring the ruins, I was able to use the bananas in the area to make banana pop and frozen banana daiquiri thanks to the ice I brought down with me. I made myself some ruins gear to make survival a tad bit easier, as well as for some setup that I need for the Bee Queen fight that I need to do soon. Before exiting the caves, I fished for some eels and made unagi with the lichen I grabbed as I was leaving the ruins. Spring is just about over, which means it is time that I finally get ready for Bee Queen. Before that, I had to kill this moose goose so I could pen its baby moslings. After clearing the area around Bee Queen of all the bees and making myself some vocal jelly, it's time to use the moslings I just penned. By aggroing moslings, you can make them spin for a chance at a lightning strike that will either force it to start raining or to restart the rain if it's already raining. That way I can have the 2.5 times damage multiplier that vocal jelly gives you when the world is wet, despite the fact that it's officially summer now. Now for Bee Queen. The strategy I'll be using is to tank phase 1 with a marble suit, and then to just spam pan flutes. I'm essentially stronger than Wolfgang thanks to the vocal jelly, and I don't have to worry about rain thanks to the fish cordon bleu that I made. I also don't have to worry about speed control for the Grumble Bees during phase 3, thanks to the Magiluminescence and the Walking Cane that I have. I definitely over-prepared for this fight, as Bee Queen goes down super quickly with the use of only 1 jelly and about 1.5 pan flutes. With Bee Queen down, and it officially being summer, my cookbook list has gone from this to this. I deconstructed my pan flute so I can use the mandrake to make mandrake soup. I made some jelly beans with the royal jelly I got from Bee Queen. And since it's summer, I made some flower salad thanks to having built my base next to the oasis. As I was grabbing my bearings and preparing for the next recipes, I finally got my second piece of butter, which I use to make fresh fruit crepes. It's finally time to go sailing to make all the barnacle and fig related recipes. I pretty quickly found some seaweeds, which I put to sleep with my pan flute so I could safely shave them for the barnacles. I continued exploring the ocean in order to find the rather elusive waterlogged biome for the figs that I needed, and as I was about to give up on finding the biome, I luckily found it as I was rowing back to my base to recoup. After gathering some figs, it was finally time to make the last few recipes of the run. With the figs, I made a fig stuffed trunk with the help of the koala fin I stored at base earlier, then made figatoni, fig kebabs, and figgy frogwich. Then, with the barnacles, I made barnacle nigiri, barnacle pita, barnacle linguine, and stuffed fish heads. I also finally got that last piece of butter on day 66. So I fished up some lobsters to make lobster bisque, and with that piece of butter, lobster dinner. At this point, I thought the run was over, as I had thought I made everything I needed, but it turns out I was missing a single recipe. I eventually figured out that one of the 2 barnacle pitas I made earlier was meant to be a California roll, but I accidentally used a piece of barnacle instead of a fish morsel to get that 1 fish requirement. After using 2 fish morsels this time, I was finally able to make the California roll, completing the run on day 68. This run was a lot of fun, as I was able to make a lot of the recipes that I normally would never make in the game. Of course, the fastest this run could be done is day 56, under default settings, since cactus flower can only be made if it's summer. But I'm pretty happy with what I got. The hardest part of this run was honestly keeping track of what recipes I needed to make. If it weren't for the reference sheets I made, this would have been significantly more difficult to do, as there's so many Crockpot recipes in the game. If you enjoyed the video, leave a comment on what your favorite Crockpot recipe in the game is. Till next time.